This video is about how to get rid of a strike prior in the state of California. My name is Veronica. I'm a criminal defense attorney here in Los Angeles, and I help people who have been arrested put their criminal cases behind them so that they can enjoy their lives and their freedom. And again, this video is going to be about how to get rid of, how to strike a strike prior in the state of California. Now, if you're researching this, you may have heard of a Romero motion or a motion to strike a strike, and that is exactly what I'm talking about here. So, in the state of California, if previously you were convicted of a strike, that's a serious or violent felony under the 3 strikes law, then they will, or they can, add on this additional allegation, which makes your new case more serious. How much more serious? It depends on your overall criminal history, it depends on the current charges, and it depends on how they allege it. But overall, it's going to make your case much more serious, and it is going to make the possible penalties if you are convicted much, much more serious. It's going to increase the amount of prison time you do if you go to prison, perhaps substantially. So you need to try to get rid of that strike prior. And the way you do it is by filing what is called a Romero motion or a motion to strike the strike. And that is where you explain to the judge that at the time of the original offense, the defendant was much younger. Hopefully a lot of time has passed. The more time that has passed, the better. And that since that time, this person has been rehabilitated. So let's say that you are 70 years old, and when you were 20 years old, you got a strike conviction. And since then, you have established yourself as the President of the United States. Now, that motion to strike the strike would say, okay, 50 years have passed during that time, and you have contributed substantially, depending what kind of president you were, to society. And so it wouldn't be fair to hold against you the fact that you had this strike prior all the way back 50 years ago when you were only 20 years old. And the judge has discretion. It's up to the judge whether or not they think that it would be unfair or not. They have broad discretion to decide if you were substantially rehabilitated during that time period. And so in that case, almost certainly that motion would be granted. Now, let's say that you were 18 years old and you got a strike, and now you're 20 years old and you got a strike. And in the time between then, you've just committed a bunch of misdemeanors. You've not had a job, you've not gone to school, and you really have no reason for not doing any of that. It's going to be much more difficult to argue that motion. And, it's really important in a case like that to not necessarily just give up and say, okay, well, I'm not even going to try to file that motion. You have a much less, there's a much less likelihood that the judge will grant it in that case, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth filing, especially because the amount of prison time, if you do go to prison, can be so much worse. So in that instance, if it really was 2 years and my client told me, well, I did nothing, and they picked up these misdemeanors, I would try to figure out why. Why did they do nothing? Or do they have a drug problem, an alcohol problem, a mental health issue? What was going on? Maybe they were taking care of a sick family member and they just didn't think that that was something worth telling me. And then, I'd also want to look at what was the first crime and what was the second crime. If they were both armed robberies, well, that doesn't look so good. But if the second thing was something like a criminal threat, I'm going to kill you, it's not all that serious, then we might want to bring that up too in the Romero motion. So if you do have a strike prior in the state of California and there is a strike allegation against you, and the way to find that out really is just ask your attorney. If there's a strike allegation against you, it is really important that you file one of these Romero motions, a motion to strike the strike. At the very least, just filing it can gain you some leverage because the prosecution then knows, okay, well, that might be granted. And if it's granted, then the total amount of time that you could get in prison is going to decrease substantially. And so, a case that maybe was looking like it was going to be a prison case now might be more of probation. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, or if you do have a criminal case in Los Angeles County, feel free to book a call. You can click on the link below, or just call my office.